What's up guys, I'm Heath Pierce, and it's that time. It's our 2016-2017 British Premier League preview. There's so much excitement and drama expected going into this new season with all the big name players arriving in the league. And could there be a power shift in Europe with so many top class managers coming to the Premier League? We'll get to that, but first, let's start with the relegation battle. It could presumably be a long year for these 5 teams who've yet to make much impact in the transfer window: Hull City, West Brom, Sunderland, Watford, and Burnley. For Hull City, their manager walked away from the club, and they also sold their best player in Diame to Newcastle. That is Newcastle of the English Championship, which is never a good sign when your best player gets sold down one division. Hull will likely have to pray for a fit squad all season long because they've spent most of the preseason unable to field a fit and experienced side, and they've only made one signing to combat that issue, and that's 18-year-old Will Mannion from AFC Wimbledon. The club is in distress and the season hasn't even kicked off yet, so I predict they'll go straight back to the Championship. Up next, it's West Brom. Their manager Tony Pulis is truly a mark of consistency in the Premier League, finishing for the 8th straight season somewhere between 11 and 14 in the table. This means the team spends large parts of the year bouncing up and down in the table before avoiding relegation in the final weeks of the season. Here's their problem though: they lack any real goal-scoring punch. Top scorer Salomon Rondon finished with 9 and will be looked at as the go-to man in an otherwise biteless attack that finished the season having only scored more goals than god-awful Aston Villa. Hopefully they finish 14th again, but this season I'm not holding my breath. On to Sunderland, who brought in David Moyes, so I'd assume they're taking the season serious, but is he the guy to bring the club back to mid-table, or will we see them scrapping for points until the final moments of the season again? If Jermaine Defoe puts up another 15, they have hope, but Sunderland's problems will likely compound as they've made 0 signings this summer. A strong start could give them the buffer points to survive the drop for another year, but Moyes has a huge job ahead of him. Now on to Watford, who did the hard part in surviving their first season in the Premier League and now need to establish themselves as Premier League regulars. Ighalo will need to repeat his successes of last year once he became a regular starter, and team transfer record signing Isaac Success will also have to contribute in flair or pure goal scoring. And manager Walter Mazzarri will need to bring the same defense-first mentality that helped him manage Napoli to a 2nd place finish in Serie A a few years back. And rounding out my relegation candidates are Burnley, who joined the Premier League again just 1 year after being relegated. They came back up in style, having gone 23 matches unbeaten to win the championship. For Burnley to do well, they'll need former non-league player Andre Gray to tap into his inner Jamie Vardy and repeat the 25 goals he scored last season, which won him the Golden Boot. He won't score 25, but managing about 15 could help them stay up. Burnley were winless in their first 10 games last time they were in the Premier League, so a couple early wins will certainly help their chances of staying up. Truthfully, they'll likely need a win on their final day of the season to stay up, or they'll be relegated by mid-March. Next up, we gotta talk Champions League contenders. Because winning a title is such a long shot for many teams, Champions League is a much more realistic benchmark for success for many of the big clubs in the Premier League. Manchester City, Arsenal, Chelsea, and Liverpool are all in this mix, as are Manchester United, Tottenham, and West Ham. In my opinion, Manchester City are the team to beat. Dream manager Pep Guardiola has a lot to prove in England, but let's be honest, the club is stacked with talent and already has quality signings added like Ilkay Gundogan, Leroy Sané, and the new Neymar, Gabriel Jesus. Add them to De Bruyne, Aguero, and hopefully a much better and confident Sterling, and you can see why most have them winning the Premier League this year. The key to their success? Vincent Kompany's health. City only conceded 7 goals with him on the pitch last year, but he's been often injured over the last couple seasons. Up next, let's do Arsenal, who are on the list because obviously they're my favorite team, and they do tend to find a way to finish in the top 4 year after year. They've gone out and signed Granit Xhaka, which is a plus, but they're still a world-class center back and striker away from challenging for any sort of real title, unless that title is the Capital One Cup. Plus, their most realistic transfer target at this point is Alvaro Morata, which is a good signing, but it's not likely one that'll bring them glory. My personal hope is that they bring in Lacazette, which gives them a fighting chance for a title and could force a winter sale of Theo Walcott, who's a great guy by the way, but unfortunately in football we aren't judged by how good of people we are. 4th place? Here we come. On to Chelsea, who will do what Chelsea do, and that's uneventfully winning their way to a top 3 finish with the use of tactics, discipline, and a strong counterattack. With Diego Costa seemingly on the outs, Chelsea could look to spend money on a top-class striker to complement signings in N'Golo Kante and Michy Batshuayi. The key to their success? Eden Hazard. He had an off year last year, but still possesses all of the abilities to take over games for Chelsea this season and challenge for a title. Even though I threw him them under the bus lately. The bus that Chelsea's going to park, which will help them win a title. Up next, it's Liverpool, who will put all their eggs in the Premier League basket as they have no European matches to worry over. Liverpool have had one good season in the last 5, but are now showing signs of consistency and a plan under manager Jurgen Klopp. Liverpool's success will depend heavily on Mane and Wijnaldum's ability to contribute offensively over the course of a whole season and not just in flashes. On the defensive end, if Ragnar Klavan, who I watched in preseason and was extremely impressed with, can adjust to the speed of the Premier League, Liverpool will likely have one of the better goals against averages in the league, which is something they've really struggled with over the last few years. And now it's time for mighty Manchester United, who've actually looked so-so this preseason, but picked up a huge confidence booster by winning the Community Shield. Not only did they win, but Zlatan proved he's capable of playing Premier League football by picking up the late winner in the match. Another positive for the club, Mourinho telling Schweinsteiger he's not part of the plans. Why is this a positive? Schweini is slow, he plays negative, and doesn't offer the dynamic you need from a United two-way midfielder. Don't get me wrong, he used to be phenomenal, but then again, so did every old player. Plus, I think it could be 6 months before we see Mourinho's positive impact on the club. A great year from Marcus Rashford, and an even greater year from Zlatan, and this could be a fun team to watch. I didn't see them breaking into the top 3 until they signed Pogba, but now, and not just to put it all on his shoulders, it's a matter of how quick he can adjust to his new squad. For Tottenham, I'm on the fence about them. So far this transfer window, they've made 2 great signings in Eredivisie top scorer Vincent Janssen and Victor Wanyama, both of which will provide depth for Harry Kane and Eric Dyer, allowing them to rest at important parts of the season. And depth will be key for Pochettino's side that plays a high-press, high-energy style that usually hits a wall at the end of seasons. Spurs will have to manage their intense style of play with a year-long heavy match load. If they keep the squad fit, top 6 will look certain, but I don't really see them challenging for another title. And West Ham, who are a bit of an outsider, will need a world-class year from Dimitri Payet to even be considered for a Champions League spot. They also need to settle into their new stadium quickly, stop giving up so many goals, and hope that their team can stay fit. If they can check all these boxes, Champions League isn't all that unrealistic. I mean, it kind of is, but it's worth dreaming. A European spot is realistic, I guess. Now it's on to my teams that might surprise us, for better or for worse. My surprise team for this season is Middlesbrough. They've been active in the transfer window, bringing in Negredo and Fisher. Add that to the experience of Victor Valdez and Downing, and you've got yourself a solid Premier League squad. Their big question, can Jordan Rhodes have the impact in the Premier League that he's had at every other club that he's played at? I think so. Another surprise team, it's Leicester City, and this time, it's probably not for the best. They've kept 2 of their 3 superstars, but we could see the transfer window close with only Vardy remaining. If this is the case, I expect them to finish somewhere just above mid-table and a few points out of the final Europa League spot. It's crushing to predict that, but let's hope I'm completely wrong on this and they challenge for another title. The Premier League needs it. And one more, Everton. A team whom last season fell below expectation is in theory capable of finishing in a European spot, only if they're able to keep a hold of Lukaku, Stones, and Ross Barkley. If those players get sold, expect them to finish in the bottom half of the table. If Everton keep them, we will likely see a pretty attractive style of play from new manager Koeman, and a run at a European spot might be possible. But as far as Stoke, Bournemouth, Swansea, Southampton, and Crystal Palace are concerned, they'll all likely avoid the drop, but for the most part, won't make any waves this season, which for a few of them is a good thing. So guys, that's my Premier League preview. Let me know in the comments where you think your team will finish, and make sure you comment, like, subscribe, and I will see you guys tomorrow. In 12th spot, it's Chelsea. Just like their style of play, Chelsea's kits don't do them any favors in looking cool. Of course, they're efficient, they get results, and they get the job done over the last few years, but their kits look like the same as last few years. Plus, what's with the lions inside of the jersey kits? And I'll give you some on the black kit. It's a little bit cool and edgy, but for the most part, I'm kind of unimpressed. Unless you send me a jersey, then I'll keep it.